In Greek mythology, Eros is the god of love and passion. He is usually represented as a handsome, winged young man with his famous bow. He is also well known as Cupid, his Latin name, in Rome. The Romans represented the god of love in a more infantilized way, and, in many of the artistic representations, Eros had an angelic form. But this god has no traits of a saint. He embodies desire and lust. Eros instilled love and passion in people's hearts. Under the influence of Eros, they were capable of self-sacrificing actions inconceivable to those who did not have a heart dominated by this feeling. There are two famous versions behind the origin of Eros. In the best-known version, he is the son of Aphrodite, another deity linked to love, and of Ares, the god of war. But according to Hesiod, Eros was a primordial god, born out of chaos. Without the influence of Eros, all creation is compromised, since it is his power that unites the various elements, and these unions are necessary to foster life. Love is the driving force behind the creation and preservation of life in the universe. But Eros' fame comes from the myths, legends, and parables in which he is Aphrodite's son or assistant. Eros and Aphrodite were responsible for spreading love and desire throughout the world. With his bow, Eros hit the hearts of his victims with golden arrows. The people affected fell in love immediately. Even the gods were not safe from Eros' archery. Apollo, also an archer god, mocked the way Eros handled the bow, but Apollo didn't get away with it. Eros struck Apollo's heart, and he fell in love with the nymph Daphne. But the story didn't stop there. Eros struck the nymph's heart with one of his lead arrows. These arrows provoke absolute repudiation in her. Apollo chased Daphne, and he rejected him. To escape the god's onslaught, the nymph was turned into a laurel by his father. Apollo and Eros never had a relationship, and despite being the most beautiful of gods, Apollo had no luck in love. The brilliant god designated Eros as the cruelest of all gods. For him, there was no greater pain than the pain of a broken heart. Eros was a bellicose god. He didn't distinguish between his targets, young and old, beautiful and ugly, rich and poor. All could be the target of the god of love. Sometimes he would blindfold even his eyes and shoot his arrows at random for pure fun. But in one of the stories, Eros tasted his own poison. There was a young woman considered the most beautiful of all. Some people paid her tributes that should only be paid to Aphrodite. The goddess of love asked her son to make the young woman fall in love with a terrible punishment. But the beauty of the young woman was so great that Eros was distracted, wounding himself in his own arrow. The myth of love between Eros and Psyche became one of the most celebrated stories of Greek mythology. Eros was often represented with torches in hand. These torches were used to ignite the hearts of lovers. Despite being one of the best-known gods and residing with his mother in Olympus, Eros is not traditionally one of the 12 great Olympian gods. In Rome, his importance as a Cupid was even smaller. Even though he is not so worshipped as other Olympic gods, Eros continues to advance the world, nourishing it with the power of love.